Alright, so I hope everything's working fine. Wow, so I've been filming a lot, not really editing much recently. Uh, the creative juices have not been on my favor, but that's okay. I have a collaboration video coming up. I'm still editing it and working on the collaboration itself, but that should be coming very soon, and it's super exciting. So, that's what I have to announce in my favor. Before the video starts, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And please do stick around to the end of the video because I will share how the trailer sounds. For copyright reasons, the trailer will be a lot smaller and you will see the screen. So I'm sorry for that, but there's nothing I can do about it, so deal with it. Now, something I haven't seen here yet, and I think it's kind of a cool idea, is how do you approach scoring a trailer? So for those of you who don't know, I am a student composer at Stetson University. I've been mostly training for film and television, but I've done my fair share of video game scoring practices and stuff as well. Not too much, just a slight amount. I know nothing about video games, so, you know. But today, I thought I should bring a little bit of a different format. I did this rescore of the Joker trailer. I have to admit, I have not seen the actual trailer. I have not actually seen how it was scored prior to this. I just found this example of YouTube, and I was lucky enough to find a trailer with no music on it. It was just the dialogue and the sound from the trailer. So I decided it was a very good opportunity to show how I approach scoring a trailer, and it is different than scoring a normal cue, whether it be for film or television. So I'm going to explain first of all the theory behind it and the form. Think about an exponential graph. That's basically the form of the trailer. There's no ABA, there's no rondo form, sonata form, forget about all that. You have 2 minutes to sell a movie. So what do? You have an exposition where you have maybe your main character. Usually you only focus on the main character throughout the trailer, maybe some side characters, but those are more teases than anything else. So you kind of like go with the character. If you have a theme for your character, that this might be a good place to put it. However, it is likely that you're not the composer of the actual film, meaning that you don't know the thematic content of each character quite yet. So it is rare that you will find the thematic content of the film in the trailer, but it does happen in like big blockbuster films like Star Wars and stuff like that, where you find like a theme of the Force in the trailer and stuff like that. However, I don't know the thematic content of this film, so I just went with the flow. No recognizable theme here, unfortunately. But in the exposition of our character, let's zoom me down. Okay. As you can see here, I have nothing going on. I just have this guy right here, and this is not a melody, it's not harmony. I mean, it technically is harmony, but what I have created here, it's an atmosphere, just in the background, just to fill the noise. I never like to call a soundtrack of any kind background music, but sometimes you can create atmospheres, which is different. It creates a mood for the scene to settle in. So this is what I have created here, just a simple atmosphere with some symbols right here. As you can hear, these symbols are not traditional symbols. These are bowed symbols. And these are just some that I have from a Kontakt library, but I do not rely on these way too much. But for this example, this is a rough example, it's nothing crazily fancy. But for this example, these did. I still use some of my recorded stuff. I have one day I went around campus searching for people to play extended techniques on their instrument, and I got a lot of really cool stuff. But I only used a little bit of, I think these are vocal extended techniques. I'll get to that at the end. But yeah, these are the extended vocal techniques. I will share all of the techniques I recorded on that day on another video. It's going to be the breakdown of Esoteric Beings. It's one of my favorite pieces I've written so far. It's literally 90% extended techniques. Okay, so I have these symbols. These are all bowed symbols. Some of them are pinned, some of them are suspended, and some of them are pushed. So they sound all very different, and they are different versions of each of those three variations I just said. So they create very nice atmospheres, and they sound like this. So that's one, and I have others here. Again, these are just the ones that these Kontakt library came with. The other part of the atmosphere are these cello harmonics. So I'm not sure, I didn't really pay attention to what kind of type of harmonic they were, since they are just in the Kontakt library. I just played it by ear. But usually, if I was to actually score this, meaning put it on paper, I would want to be very clear about whether they are natural harmonics or not. But in this case, it doesn't really matter. So this is what it sounds like. You can definitely hear it's a very eerie ambient that I'm creating in the beginning. Now, before you actually start scoring your trailer, you should probably think of the mood of the trailer. You're not going to be very dynamic with your mood. But it depends on the film, but for most trailers, you're gonna create, since you're trying to sell a movie, you're trying to kind of achieve a single emotion on the entire trailer. And a great way to do this is you look at the trailer, kind of figure out what type of film it is. If it's scary, make sure it's eerie from the beginning to the end. You cannot have an arc. You cannot have a story. You cannot have a musical story. You're not trying to tell a story. You're trying to sell a movie. Very different perspective that you have to keep in mind. Now, as I said before, the way you can think about the form of a trailer is kind of an exponential graph. What I mean by this is you have your exposition in the beginning. Like I said, I created this ambience and I build it a little bit more, just faintly adding a couple instruments, just trying to let it build, adding a little bit of percussion. Then I have a secondary climactic point with something big in the trailer happens, and then I keep building it up all the way until the title shows up. And when the title shows up, you have to be extremely explosive, extremely creative about how you reveal the title of the film. So you have to keep building the energy all the way to the end. You don't have that traditional arc where you have a climax and then you settle back down. You just keep building until the very end, and then boom, title. So that's how I think about the form of a trailer. I did do a little bit of research, and I've seen the movie, so I do kind of recall that Hildur Guðnadóttir was like a cello player, and I really liked the thing she did with cello, and I thought it sounded cool, so I kind of borrowed it, but that's pretty much everything I borrowed from her. Yep, that's it. I built it up to my secondary climax here, in which I did something very creative. Since I don't have a choir sample library, I used a MIDI choir, which sucks. If you don't know anything about MIDI instruments, they're terrible because they're synthesized, they're not sampled. So they sound very robotic and very bad. And if I play it by itself, you can actually tell it sounds horribly bad. So yeah, no, that sounds horrendously bad. However, since I was building this mix, and it's a very rough mix, but since I was building this mix and I looked at the spectrum, and I noticed that I was missing mids, and I used the choir to just fill the mids, and I EQ'd everything that I didn't need, it sounds realistic in context. Well, somewhat realistic, and you'll hear that in a second. So this is my MIDI choir by itself, and this is what it sounds like in context. I'm going to play it from here just to give you some context. So you can definitely hear that in context, it actually sounds much more realistic, which is great. So this is my secondary climax. This is where something I feel revealing about the character happens, or something explosive about the nature of the film, of the trailer, sorry. And then the trailers usually in the next following section, prior to the reveal of the title, get very rhythmic, and this one does exactly that. Usually what I see in a lot of trailers is like little catchphrases or little like slogans, I guess you can say, that appear in a very rhythmic way. I noticed this, and when you see the trailer at the end, you'll know what I'm talking about. In this case, it's like, put on a happy face, or get ready for this film, or whatever it might be. And it's very rhythmic in the way it shows those little slogans. So I added some percussion and some stab hits. It's some string stabs. Those are pretty common. They sound really, really cheesy by themselves, and they do sound really cheesy in this mix, but I didn't really want to get too complicated for an example, so I hope you don't mind. But this is what it sounds like, and you're gonna notice it's pretty constant and pretty rhythmic. Okay, so what you heard is the percussion. This is a suspended drum, suspended bass drum with this cluster of string stabs with the cello harmonics here at the top. And so I added some ambience by adding these trombone clusters, which are pretty eerie in my opinion. So those are pretty sick, but they also sound kind of cheesy by themselves, so I kind of hid them in the back of the mix, but I didn't hide them all the way because I do want them to actually kind of cut through a little bit. I don't really believe in adding instruments you don't actually want to hear in your mix, so if you ever do that, just get rid of it. But in this case, I do actually like the faint effect they have in the back. Now, we get to the climax of the mix, and since it was already pretty rhythmic, I added some more rhythmic bass drum patterns. These are 16th, accented 16th, which is a very common thing in film. And it pushes through, it creates momentum. I added some string risers and some choir rises to push through to the very end, where I finally have the last hit, the last percussive hit that reveals the title. And as you can see, this is kind of like in EDM, you have like your riser, and then you get to the drop, and then finally you have something even bigger. So this is exactly what I decided to do as an approach. And you can definitely even see from the addition of each instrument, you can actually see the graph I was talking about. You see how there's this kind of exponential growth. Of course, this is kind of like vaguely visual, but you can kind of see my idea. You can see that at the climax, I have the most stuff going on. So let me break down this little climax for you guys really quickly. This is what I did. You don't have to copy it step by step or anything, but these are just some ideas I'm spitting out. So I have these 16th bass drum hits. I thought they sounded pretty weak, so I added some quarter notes here. And just as any build, I made it into eighth notes at over here. Okay, I have this string ostinato. It's kind of crappy, but it's not too terrible. It gets dissonant at the end because I move the root up to the leading tone, but I keep the chord as the tonic chord. And the reason I did this is because at first I did not have this ostinato. I just had this minor scale, this harmonic minor scale with the French horns. And It just goes all the way up the scale and to the leading tone, and it stays in the leading tone still instead of resolving up to the tonic, which I think adds a lot of dissonance and a lot of urgency, especially because this choir riser is in the tonic key, which is E minor. And yeah, and so is the tonic chord with the bass, with the leading tone bass here at the bottom with the strings. So that's extremely dissonant, and it builds all the way up to the last percussive hit. So this is what it sounds like all together. Whoops. Let's see. Okay, so as you can see, I used the both cymbals here at the end again, and you might have noticed something fancy over here. I was talking earlier in the video about some extended vocal techniques that I recorded with some of my friends, and credits go to Alex Morrissey and Gracie Caggiano for being amazing people that helped me get this done. So this was recorded with a binaural microphone. And Gracie Caggiano, not only is she an amazing composer that inspires me every day and teaches me a lot of cool stuff like species counterpoint, gang. Oh, and she also teaches me orchestration. So just FYI, I love this human being. Hi. She is also a poet. So she actually lent me a couple poems, and I gave one vocalist a poem, and I gave another vocalist another poem, 2 different poems, and I had them read them to each channel. So it's like whispering, kind of like ASMR like, but it's a very creepy, eerie atmosphere in the background. So that's like, ooh, scary. And I also did some vocal dyads. If you don't know what vocal dyads are, these are when they're mostly used for microtonal vocal compositions, or film in this case. And this is basically when you create beating. Beating is basically interference, or so if you know when 2 waves collide with each other, sometimes when they are in opposite directions, they create this negative interference that collapses them and creates silence. And it can be very rhythmic depending on the 2 pitches. This is caused by dissonance. So a great way to do this is to have a singer hold a pitch and have another singer start at the same pitch, rise, and then come back. Because that microtonal slide, the glissando, is going to create rhythmic beating that's going to accelerate and then decelerate, and it's going to sound really cool. In this case, this is what it sounds like. You can hear the beating accelerated, and it sounds really cool. I have like 30 minutes just of song dyads. I don't know how they keep up with me that day. I don't know. Okay, those people, thank you. But yeah, so that's basically how I brought the eeriness level up to God levels. So since you have put up with this video all the way to the end, this is the final result. I know this is another quickie, but I have a lot of content that I'm working on, so I'll be better about releasing it. And hopefully the YouTube algorithm doesn't hate me for being inconsistent this week. But I hope you enjoy this. Let's see, what else can I say? What was I? I said a thing before I left, but it's been like a month. Come on. Oh yeah, don't stop writing. As long as you don't stop, you'll continue to get better. And if you plateau, you didn't really plateau. You're actually still getting better, but you're getting just like a lot more critical of yourself, which is great, but also makes you kind of depressed. So don't do that. But at the same time, kind of do it. You know what I'm saying? Because it keeps you moving forward. So that illusion of a plateau actually does the exact opposite. But regardless, I digress. Here is the final trailer and what this whole thing sounds like.
Arthur, Does it help to have someone to talk to?
My mother always tells me to smile and put on a happy face. She told me I had a purpose to bring laughter and joy to the world. Hey, stop them! Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there? What?
What's so funny? Freak!
Gotham has lost its way. What kind of coward would do something that cold-blooded? Someone who hides behind a mask.
I used to think that my life was a tragedy. But now I realize